Welcome back, baseball fans, to the 1981-84 off-season draft results. We've got the second round right now. The first round went swimmingly. Each round gets a little bit slower when it gets less and less obvious who you're taking. But in the first round, we'll begin with the Cardinals. They took Raleigh Fingers first overall. They also won the Commissioner Award. With that pick, they took Bruce Hurst as a developmental player that they can improve later on before the season starts. So with their second pick, we also have notes indicated in this area that don't have stats. This indicates to me that they'd like to take Sixto Lezcano in the 82 card and Keith Hernandez with an 81 card, if available. But their pick, the only pick from the 84, Ozzie Smith. So the Cardinals trying to build that World Championship team. Raleigh Fingers, they got through the Milwaukee deal with San Diego, trying to turn the tables in the Brewers, who they faced in that World Series. They get their closer, sending Suter, of course, to the Padres. But Ozzie Smith is the principal player here, of course. He's the guy who turns this franchise around in the Templeton trade. So Fingers and Smith, Hurst are on the roster. Hernandez, Lezcano waiting in the wings. They're getting a nice little team together in St. Louis. Next up, Seattle. And this is a intriguing move, interesting move. And, you know, sometimes teams are taking a deep dive. Seattle had no left-handed pitching. Or they had Ed Vandenberg. They had traded Floyd Bannister away. They needed a lefty. And so they decided, let's take a look at the waiver pool. This is what the W signifies here in this color yellow. And let's find the best left-handed pitcher in the entire waiver class, and it's John Curtis, age 35. Well, it's the reason why these guys get on waivers in the first place. But hey, could it create a run with Seattle taking Curtis here? Seriously devaluing the left-handed pitching market on waivers at that point. They also added Tony Bernazard, taken out of the White Sox system in the big trade. So with Bannister and Paciorek involved. So in a spiraling of events, butterfly effect, the White Sox will probably get Seattle's second baseman, which was Jack Mercante, in the relocation, in the shell game, if you want to call it. Anyway, Dodgers next, and they decided, let's try and at least do things we did in 1981 really well, because that's when they were in the World Series. So they kept Dusty Baker with his .320 average, and they also brought back Steve Garvey as a 1E2 first baseman. I can appreciate that. That's pretty cool. Trying to do what's best for the organization when you've been struggling in recent years. Vegas had no lefties at all. They had the rights to Woody Fryman, but they're going to wait. They know he's in the bag. He's easy. They added Paul Splittorff, and they found in their system Ray Fontenot, former Yankee pitcher, 25 years old, best year of his career in the year of 83. So they went from nothing to something with left-handed pitchers, two of them in one selection. Again, if you're wondering why two, if you have the rights to a player in the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th round, you can just simply announce it now. He's protected anyway. So it just speeds up the draft for me. Next up, Boston. All right. This is an intriguing move. We talked about losing Bruce Hurst up here, and the Red Sox already having Bob Ojeda, John Tudor, and Jack O'Connor. Well, they took a lefty, a really good lefty reliever, Carlos Diaz. In 1983, 83 innings, 2.05 ERA. By taking Diaz, Boston's roster is immediately incorrect. They've got 4 left-handed pitchers on their team. They're fully aware of that. It means that they're going to trade O'Connor, who's on the team. If nobody comes asking for O'Connor, they're just going to have to cut him. Because Diaz, Tudor, and Ojeda are all better than O'Connor. It's a gamble Boston's willing to pay. Because they're convinced that left-handed pitching is so desperate, a.k.a. John Curtis with a second pick of the second round, that's a smart move for them. And they doubled up with their picks. And look, folks, Carl Yastrzemski. I could have taken the 41-year-old Yastrzemski. I could have taken the 42-year-old Yastrzemski. I took the 43-year-old Yastrzemski, folks, because he turns it up. He turns on the gas jets at age 43. A 767 OPS, 359 on base for Carl at age 43. How cool is that? Anyway, next up, the Twins. After adding Viola and Corbett, they decided on a hitter, John Castino. Very cool second and third baseman, twos at both spots, and he's got power both against lefties and righties. It's 277, 751 OPS. Solid 28-year-old Castino. His career starts to go after that, though. And they needed a lefty in the bullpen, so they went in their system and found Pete Filson with a 340 ERA. He's your, in air quotes, lefty who can get lefties out. Next up, the Mets. They took 2 picks from 1982. Craig Swan, he can help. He can help. He probably the last year we'll see Craig Swan in New York in 82. 3.35 ERA. The reason is that Ron Darling's not and Sid Fernandez, they're going to wait one more year before we see them in New York. They also added Jerry Remy. We also have notes here that Gene Richards, Frank Tanana, and Jerry Russell will be added in those spots. Clearly, Richards and Russell are just one-year stopgap players for the Mets. Tigers. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. The Tigers. You know what? The Tigers have been embarrassed. Why? The last 2 world champions have been in their own division. The Ohio players and the Expos. And Detroit is supposed to lord over that division with also-rans, and it hasn't happened. So after adding 84 Willie Hernandez and Johnny Grubb, they go with Alan Trammell's brilliant 1983 season, 319. He's a 1 at short, 856 OPS. And also adding Juan Berenguer. So they're putting all the pieces together for that 84 Tiger World Championship team with 4 of their first 8 picks. They will be adding Jerry Kuzman at a certain point as the playoff caliber, obviously, pitcher, left-handed starter to go in the rotation, joining Morris Wilcox and a guy they traded for, Tom Brennan. Pirates? All right, so they improved Johnny Ray to his best year in the timeline, 1984. He's a 312, 79 OPS, switch-hitting second baseman, making him one of the best second basemen in baseball. And they give a 4-year contract to Dave Parker, meaning that he'll play the entire timeline exclusively with Pittsburgh. He won't venture to Cincinnati, and that's probably a good thing, I guess, for Pirate fans. 84, he hits 285 with a 738 OPS. So Pittsburgh's done some odd things the last 2 drafts. Now they're doing some really good things. They're also going to bring back Stargell and Jim Bibby one more time later in the draft. All right. Colorado Rockies. The one that got away from Detroit is Dan Petrie. They're not going to have Dan Petrie on that 84 Tiger team because Colorado's got him. You can't keep everybody. Petrie was an 18-game, 18-8, 324 ERA. He was 5th in the Cy Young voting in 84. But he's a Colorado Rocky now. Also, they had Dwayne Walker. At age 27, Dwayne has his best year as a platoon corner outfielder, 292, 920 OPS for Dwayne Walker. Nice picks for the Rockies. All right, the Texas Rangers needed a center fielder because Mickey Rivers' range is shot. He's got to play in the corner or DH. They found Mike Davis away from Oakland because Oakland had Dwayne Murphy in center and Ricky Henderson in the left. So Mike Davis was available. He also just has one good year. That is 1983, hitting 275, 723 OPS. Next up, the Florida Marlins. After going for Pedro Guerrero in the first round, they added the 84 cards of Dan Schatzeder with a 271 ERA. nice year, 136 innings. Did that with the Expos, of course. And they found a shortstop from the Mets, Rafael Santana, a 276 hitting shortstop in 1984. He comes and goes, boom, he disappears. That's the only year we have Rafael in our timeline. But it's good enough to be the starting shortstop for the Florida Marlins for 4 years. Baltimore had Singleton 2 years ago. Couldn't protect him. Too many guys to protect. Had to let him go for a season. Cubs picked him up. He helped the Cubs get to the playoffs. Then Baltimore said, we want our guy back. And they had to trade to get Singleton back to Baltimore, which they did. So 1 year hiatus away from Baltimore. They bring him back with his 81 card along with 81 Scott McGregor. Nice year for Scotty in 81. All right, the Padres next. They're going to cash in one of the trade chips they got from the Cardinals. First, they're going to add Luis Salazar's 300 card of 81. He's still going to play third base because they have too many outfielders. And Gary Templeton. And this is the 81 Templeton with the St. Louis stats, where it's 288. So Templeton, it's the case. There you go. It's the case with Templeton, the last good year on the artificial turf of St. Louis, but the Padres get those statistics. Once he starts hitting in San Diego, the batting average is going to drop. So they're going to have one high batting average year of Templeton in San Diego, along with high batting averages of Tony Gwynn and Kevin McReynolds and Salazar, who's in 300. Maybe this is the year for the Padres. The Expos are just running back guys who helped them win the World Series 2 years ago. That would be Larry Parrish, Rudy May, and then this round, it's Warren Cromartie and Doug Flynn. Cromartie does hit 304 and arguably his best year in 81. And Doug Flynn is still a 1 second baseman. As long as we find guys are ones, we like to jump on them, even if they hit 222. If you're wondering about the logic of ones at key positions with bad batting averages, I'll just reference Ed Brinkman's 1972 203 batting average with top 10 MVP votes. You can look that one up. All right, White Sox. Oh, yeah, they made the deal for Floyd Bannister in the offseason, so you have to plug him in. Have to get him on the roster immediately. They do. Interesting card for Floyd Bannister, as you can see here. He's got a homer chance, 2 different homer chances on this card. I've never seen this before in Strat in this era. One's homer double, one's homer fly ball. It's the only player between this timeline from 1969 to 1984 who can make that claim. Maybe in the present edition, with ballpark effects and so forth, they have that frequently, but not in this first edition. Floyd Bannister is now a White Sox with his 82 card. Okay. Next up, the Atlanta Braves. All right. They're having a rather interesting draft. Finding guys from other organizations. They found Juan Samuel. And they've had a very mediocre Enos Cabell on their roster as utility player, but now they're going to get him into a Detroit Tiger card. We've already seen Dan Petrie of the Tigers being stolen away. Now we're seeing Enos Cabell being stolen away of a possible World Series team. Cabell's 33 years old, but he hits 311. He'll be playing first base, and Bob Watson will be the DH versus lefties. Bob Watson finds the fountain of youth at age 37. 309, 490 slugging, 866 OPS for Bob Watson. He'll be a DH, though. He won't have to play in the field. Next up, the Toronto Blue Jays. Oh, my goodness. Toronto. Look, I'm telling you, folks, division's up for grabs. They're not the Yankees, not the Red Sox, not the Orioles. Up for grabs. As the Blue Jays... they had Tom Niedenfuhr. They decided to improve him to his 1983 season. He's just 23 years old. He's got a 1.90 ERA. The whip is ridiculous. 0.887 whip. He becomes the closer. The heir apparent to Tom Hankey, who, of course, doesn't arrive in Toronto until the mid-late 80s. but he's sort of like that, a Terminator, for the closing out games for the Blue Jays. And the other smart thing is they went out in the offseason and traded for Rance Mulliniks. And they're going to use him at shortstop in 83. And they're going to pump the brakes on adding Tony Fernandez to this roster. They decided, let's just wait one more year for Tony Fernandez. Mulliniks can play shortstop in this season. And then they'll move Mulliniks to third base next year and bring in Tony Fernandez. So that's the plan for the Blue Jays. Next up, the Arizona Diamondbacks. Hey, we got a nice little theft. Finally, I like to see players stolen. So, Len Matuzak, originally a Philly, signed away to the Mets, but undrafted, left unprotected, and Arizona goes and plucks him up as a platoon left-handed hitting first baseman with a .525 slugging, .831 OPS in a platoon. The Phillies had, they had Pete Rose, they had Tim Corcoran hitting .346. The Mets had Ray Knight at first base. They traded for Ron Jackson. So Len Matuzak is in Arizona. And also Bob Ebony Eyes Welch, just keeping it rolling in L.A. Another reason why the Dodgers have been so faded is that they lost Jerry Royce, Bob Welch, and Fernando Valenzuela, and Don Sutton. So that's why your Dodgers are stinking up the joint lately, folks. They've just been raided, unfortunately, of their star pitching. Hopefully Oral Hershiser in L.A. will help correct that. Next up, Kansas City. Oh, yeah, they had to go trade for Willie Wilson, get him away from the Yankees, who signed him in free agency, I think with a 78, 79 card. And they finally get Willie Wilson in Kansas City after a long wait. They've been waiting a long time to get their hands on Willie, and they got him into his 82 card, which is arguably the best year he has in Kansas City. A batting title winner, .332. And they also added the Double-A stealing catcher John Wathan. Not only is he a Double-A stealing catcher, he's also 32 years old. Figure that one out, folks. How the heck's a catcher, a 32-year-old catcher, become a Double-A stealer? He certainly did. He had 36 stolen bases, only caught 9 times. My goodness, folks. My goodness. John Wathan. All right, next up, the Cubs. They had the rights to 2 players in 84 who were really good, and that would be Claudell Washington and Scott Sanderson. They traded for both, actually, to do that. It's a really good season for Claudell. 3 -2 E10 in right field. Can hit lefties fine. Plenty of power and on base. .842 OPS. Scott Sanderson, .314 ERA. Also, if you check out here, they have nobody on the books for 1982 or 83. So in the comment section, I have O'Connor ? So that could be a future trade with Boston. It seems like Boston may have made the right move, having a fourth lefty available for teams like the Cubs to come calling. We'll see if that trade gets consummated. California. Hey, Rod Carew finally arrives. Took him a while. Carew will be here this year, and next year they'll probably get Reggie. But Carew is now officially with the Angels. They had to jettison Ron Jackson to clear the space for him. And that was the only pick the Angels made. He's 37 years old, and he's hitting .339. My goodness, Rod Carew. Also, I'm starting to make notes here of needs with a little bit of shorthand involved. This means right-handed starting pitcher, and of course catcher and shortstop, so that I know when it comes time to draft, that's what I'd like to target, and I'll start scratching out those when it comes apparent. Brewers are taking this draft slowly. They're just adding the pick without locking down the protected player in the later part, because they got a lot of moving pieces. Not sure. They have multiple years for Ben Ogilvy they're considering. Multiple years for Bob McClure they're considering. They have some guys, some outfielders like Marshall Edwards, Deion James they're considering. So they're just going to go Ted Simmons with the best year in Milwaukee, which is 1983. .308 hitter. He goes into the time machine. 39 doubles, 13 dingers, 108 RBIs, 799 OPS. This is the Simmons they thought they were getting when they made the deal after 1980. San Francisco Giants. They'd be making a trade later in this round, you'll see. But for this time, they were frightened that a star pitcher for them, Atlee Hammaker, 1983, Atlee Hammaker's best year, he was almost taken away by Boston and the St. Louis Cardinals and some other teams who decided against it or didn't have the room for it. So the Giants got nervous that they were going to lose Atlee Hammaker, so they decided to take him now. They didn't think he'd last much longer in the draft. So Hammaker is a Giant. 2.25 ERA, gave up the home run to Fred Lynn in the 83 All-Star game. Grand Slam. Only Grand Slam in the All-Star game history. Atlee Hammaker. There you go. And, do they have another move? No. We'll talk about the trade coming up soon. All right, the Yankees, after Don Mattingly, of course, they had to address the Reggie situation. And so they're taking 1 year of Reggie with his California performance of 1982. Take that, Major League Baseball. Boo, boo. This is why people hate the Yankees. They cheat, steal money, and all sorts of bad stuff. So 1 more year in New York with the great California Angels stats of 1982. And then after that, Reggie will probably be traded possibly for Dave Winfield in the offseason or possibly to California. We'll have to see what happens. But right now, Reggie's going to run it back 1 more year in 82. And also, they got Willie Randolph to come back to New York. That'll move Larry Milbourne, who was playing second base, over to shortstop. Shortstop Bucky Dent was traded to the Cubs. They have notes here in question mark. Is Juan Benitez available in 83? They'd like to get him. And they traded for Mike Easler. They're going to plug him into the 84 season if it becomes available. Next up, your Cleveland Indians. Ron Hassey's best year in the timeline is 1983, so they took him as a .270 catcher at 726 OPS. They had the rights in 83 to Bill Dawley, taken out of the Houston system. Bill Dawley with a .282 ERA in 80 innings. For Houston, no more. Now it's with Cleveland. And Cleveland, boy, you're looking really... The world champion has been in your division the last 2 years, and it wasn't you. It was the Expos and the Ohio players. Detroit's been into a few World Series. Cleveland is the why us? You know, it's like, yeah, I don't know what's going on, Cleveland, but
you've got mail.
You should have been the wild card team in your division every year and haven't. So maybe maybe having Terry Francona as a player manager will help. All right, Portland making some nice moves. They added Jerry Royce and Lemon in the first round, and then in 84, they signed Terry Poole to a 4-year deal. Terry starts turning on some balls here. He's got a .434 slugging, suddenly. Terry Poole finds the long ball in 1984. And because he doesn't hit lefties very well, they got a corner outfielder. His name is Mike Brown, 24 years old, only good year of his career. .284, .520 slugging, .862 OPS. It's lefties better than righties, which diminishes his value slightly. That's a stud platoon, though, in corner outfield for Portland. Also, you see another shorthand here. And this is uppercase S means starting shortstop. Period. Good luck. That's it. That's the only guy. These other positions are pitchers. So they have one offensive position yet to fill, and you don't have any shortstops on your team whatsoever. So you got to find like Cal Ripken or somebody like that. Good luck with that. You're not going to find him. But whoever you have sign at shortstop, he's got to have good defense, and he has to hit lefties and righties. And that is so very difficult to find. They might have to cut or make some trades to find 2 shortstops, which is what is recommended. Cincinnati Reds. Oh, this is nice. They needed a lefty reliever. They went out and got John Franco in 1984. .261 ERA in 80 innings for Franco. Yep, 23 years old. Before he goes to the Mets, he is a Red. He will join Bill Scherer and eventually Joe Price on the team. By adding Franco, it means Joe Price has to stay as a starting pitcher, not a relief pitcher. Oakland. They went after Rick Langford of 81, 2.99 ERA, 195 innings in the year of the strike. Starter 9. What do you expect? Langford, McCaddy are both starter 9s. Keogh's a starter 8. This will be the most underused bullpen in Strat, which is why they don't have signed any relievers. And they made a deal in the offseason to get the last good year of John Mayberry in Toronto of 1981. He hits 248. 17 dingers for John Mayberry. Hopefully, that will be the left-handed bat Oakland needs because they're mostly right-handed. Next up, the Astros. Their favorite Astros, Cesar Cedeno. He gets signed. He had gone to Cincinnati by 1982, but the Astros decided to hold on to him with the Cincy stats. 289, 758 OPS. Range is diminishing in center field. He's now a 3. He's gone from 1, 2 to 3 in the last 3 years. He can play first base in a platoon with Denny Walling eventually. And that's the only pick. All right, we had a trade. The Phillies and the Giants. The Giants had Al Holland. The Phillies had Keith Moreland. They were dealt along with a draft token so that Philly could get Al Holland, which means that they have tired of Tug McGraw. They have said, we don't think Tug's got it anymore. So they went out and got 83 Al Holland, as the Phillies have been to 3 of the last 6 World Series, losing all of them. And they're hoping that Holland, who pitched for them in 1983, will be the answer. That means that Tug McGraw is a piece that the Phillies still have. They can't add him to the roster unless they... Well, they could add him to the roster as a setup guy and get rid of Ray Searage, which is an option. And that's the only move Philadelphia made. The last team, Ohio players, adding Vida Blue and Mike Norris in the first round. They went out in the offseason, they traded for Gary Matthews. So not only did they trade for him, they offered him a big 4-year deal with his 84 card. He was with the Cubs in 84. Not anymore. He's with the World Champs. 291, 410 on base, 838 OPS for Gary Matthews. And they also, in the farm system, had a Ron Washington card. Middle infielder with a 294 batting average. So that's nice for this team. They're always struggling in middle infielder. They had Gonzalez a year ago with Rodney Scott, Jerry Manuel. Somehow they still won the World Series. Not sure how they pulled that off with such mediocre middle infield defense and hitting, but they did. Ron Washington won't make that much better, but he brings a 294 average, which is the highest average of any middle infielder in Ohio since I can remember. That's it. That's 2 rounds of the draft. And then we'll just pick this up with draft results for the rest. I'm not going to do the individual rounds beyond this. We'll do the 8 rounds and then best pick from each team made. Thanks for checking out the 81-84 Fall League Draft second round, and we'll see you next time.